Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are going to be reviewing a... Ugh. Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to be reviewing a sort of pseudo Disney movie. A movie that's considered a sort of cult classic, underrated so to speak. That movie would be, of course, the legendary Anastasia. So for some background, this movie is inspired by at the time, rumors and speculations of Princess Anastasia of Russia being alive still. This is before the discovery of her body along with the royal family several years later in Siberia, if I recall correctly. But we're not here to have a history lesson, we're here to talk about a movie. So this movie has a very interesting plot. Anya, aka Anastasia, is unable to catch up with the train with her grandma after Rasputin destroyed the royal family and placed a curse on them so that the Russian people would overthrow them. That being, of course, in historical context, the Soviet government, or the Soviet Union, as some like to say. She meets Dmitri, who is sort of like a con man, trying to find the quote-unquote real Anastasia. And of course, we see a funny little audition scene. The two of them eventually go from Russia to modern-day Poland, to Germany, to Paris to meet her grandma, all while in between Rasputin, in a sort of purgatory world, tries to kill Anastasia as he cannot go to the afterlife, as he made a deal with the sort of devil or black magic, and he has to make sure all of the Romanov bloodline is killed, and he can't go unless Anastasia dies. And of course, towards the end, Dimitri's con is revealed, and Anastasia doesn't believe him because all she ever wanted in life is to feel like she was special and want to understand where she came from. Towards the end of the movie, she meets her grandma, and her grandma realizes, yes, this is indeed my granddaughter. Even after being offered the chance of a lifetime to be royalty, to sort of restore the Romanov name, she turns it down for her love Dmitri because the two of them fell in love. We have a sort of epic climax with Rasputin where he gets defeated after his vial shatters, and his death is largely considered a focal point of a lot of Gen Z trauma. I'll be honest, I never saw this movie as a kid, but I'm pretty sure if I saw this movie as a kid, I would not be traumatized actually. Yes, I know that sounds weird. Yes, the way he dies is like kind of disturbing. I think the first way he dies, how he quote unquote drowns in the beginning, is way more disturbing, but the way he dies is not really that disturbing. I mean, maybe it's because I was desensitized as a kid from like watching other stuff. So Dmitri and Anya form a relationship and they, live happily ever after. If we want to categorize this in a sort of Disney movie sense, this is the last movie of the Disney princess timeline, if we're not counting, I believe, Princess and the Frog, which takes place in the 1920s to 30s, if I recall correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I don't really care too much, but, correct me if I'm wrong. It's inspired by historical elements, which Rasputin did exist. He is a con man. Like, he believed in these weird superstitions, and he apparently didn't die, like, 3 times. It took him... He survived getting shot, if I remember right, and what ultimately killed him was him being drowned. And Rasputin is often used in a lot of fiction and folklore for like characters like Hellboy, for example. But Anastasia was a large focal point of a lot of conspiracy theories and legends and myths that she's still alive up until, I believe, around the early 2000s or the 1990s, where they found the royal family, including her father, Tsar Nicholas II, not long after the Communist Revolution. And what did I think about this movie? It was pretty decent, I would say. Definitely not like amazing, but like for a knockoff Disney princess movie, I definitely did like the historical fiction angle. I think that's like something really lacking in Disney princesses as far as I'm aware. But then again, I don't really care too much. But just the idea of the historical fiction itself is very interesting to me because it rewrites a history. And in my sort of, if you want to say headcanon or creepypasta narration, Dmitri is always trying to con Anya's grandmother, and in a sort of headcanon, the events that played out is what she imagines would happen, that he eventually would find her, even though she knows deep down he's a con man. And of course, in the movie, Dmitri helps save Anya in the beginning, which is a factor in why they fell in love. But anyways, so this movie, in terms of the animation, was pretty decent at the time. Definitely very Disney-esque, I would say. I know there's the question, would I classify Anya as a Disney princess? I would say no. Now, the reason I say no is because at the time it was made by 20th Century Fox, or as they like to be called, 20th Century Studios now. The intent is similar, but it's not exactly the same. It's a sort of pseudo Disney princess. Even after Disney bought Fox, I don't think they would ever acknowledge her existence. They haven't really acknowledged a lot of Fox properties in general, as far as I'm aware. The animation was done by Don Bluth, who is a very influential animator in terms of his portfolio is very large. He did The Secret of Nim, he did An American Tail, Anastasia, The Land Before Time, and various other movies I cannot get into, but his portfolio is very large, and he's one of the most influential animators of all time. So Don Bluth knocks it out of the park as always, I would say, as far as I'm aware. Out of all the movies I've seen, I would definitely say, in my opinion, Time AE or The Land Before Time is his favorite of mine, at least personally. The voice acting was pretty well done, I would say. Everyone emoted themselves very properly. Very good performances from Anya's voice actor. Meg Ryan does a good performance, I would say. Christopher Lloyd's Rasputin is very entertaining, I would say. I've always loved Christopher Lloyd's performances in the various properties he's done over the years, including but not limited to The Addams Family, Back to the Future, and if I remember correctly, he did the Clue movie. This movie, I would say, was pretty decent for the time. There were some animation things that felt a little weird, a little funky. Anya looked a little weird in certain angles, I would say. But I think that's like the animation style itself. Some of the characters looked a little cursed in certain frames and stuff. But the plot was pretty well done, although my only critique is Rasputin didn't really do enough for the plot. He was a very influential part, I would say. He was definitely in it a lot, but I wish we got more screen time of him actually like engaging, actually interacting with the characters and trying to do more of his magic stuff. He doesn't appear in the main overworld, if we want to call it that, up until the end, which makes sense, I would say. But what I'm saying is I kind of wish we had a little bit more, I guess, screen time for him, maybe the wrong term, like in terms of interacting with the characters. Like maybe Dimitri did know him and had a brief interaction with him, because it felt like him and Anastasia and the grandmother were the only ones really relevant for Rasputin in terms of his character interactions. I kind of wish it was just a little bit more in depth, I would say, but most of the characters, I would say, were very, very likable. Pretty good, I would say. It's definitely very entertaining. I don't think it's, like, amazing, but, like, it's just, for what it's worth, it's definitely very good. It's not gonna eclipse, like, some of the classic Disney movies, but it's definitely better than certain Disney movies, I would say, especially as of late. But honestly, if I had to rate this movie, I would definitely rate it maybe a very solid 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10, I think, is a perfect rating for this movie. The animation style, Don Bluth always knocks it out of the park. He's always very good. Besides some curse angles and stuff like that, performances were always very good. The music numbers, I think, weren't really like earworms, but they were pretty entertaining nonetheless. I really liked Rasputin's song and how he kind of falls apart, because that's his motivation. Literally, he's falling apart. The historical fiction, I think, is definitely very strong with this movie, and it definitely helps preserve the movie's messaging of self-discovery and knowing that you are enough. Realizing that you are enough and you're valuable regardless of where you come from. Whether you come from royalty or for poverty, it's ultimately up to you to become the best person you can be. My only critiques, I would say, is definitely, like I said, the music and some of the writing, I would say. But otherwise, what would you rate this movie? Did you like it as a kid? Were you traumatized by Rasputin's death scene? And what do you think? Do you think Anya is a Disney princess? Let me know down below, and I hope to see you soon.